sit down somewhere?
Mom, he's picking on me.
If you know your party's extension, please dial it now.
Houston, we have a problem.
Sick of all this complaining all the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Hi, and welcome, all you frenzy but fabulous people out there, to the very first episode of Multitasking in Heels. We're your hosts, Liz and Lindsay, and we're so excited to bring you our new labor of love. We wanted to start this podcast because mothers, and really, to be fair, parents in general these days, are just so overwhelmed with these unrealistic expectations that we're, quite frankly, never going to be able to fulfill. And yet we constantly put pressure on ourselves to do that. And then we constantly feel like we're always failing. So we wanted to bring together a like-minded community to share our stories of juggling kids, work, marriage, pets, parents, houses, etc., to share our stories, know you're not alone, and know that you can still look fabulous while seemingly doing it all. A few disclaimers about the podcast before we get into today's topic. We will not be doling out advice of any kind here. Even though Linz and I have been parents for about 13 years each, we are not qualified to give parenting advice at all whatsoever. In fact, you could probably sue us for negligence if we did that. Second, yes, if you dislike salty language, I would stop listening immediately. And lastly, we are always going to do our best to bring humor to every situation we discuss, no matter how sensitive or uncomfortable it might be. So with that, Linz, do you want to introduce our segment?
Sure. Our first segment that we will do on a regular basis is called Pumps and Flat of the Week. And this is where we'll discuss our highs and lows of the week. And you can expect this every week. And with that, my pump moment of the week was getting out with a few friends out in the world of hiking. And I will.
You look like a hiker, Linz.
I know. I'm a true hiker, and as you will see from this story, mm-hmm. I stupidly went out hiking in booties because that's smart. And as the title of our show says, mm-hmm. Multitasking in heels, I truly was multitasking in heels. And I had no time I was getting my son from the doctors to mm-hmm. get to hiking, and traffic was bad and had no time to change into my tennis shoes. So I show up to a few friends and said, well, this is what I look like and we're going hiking. And yes, I might have rolled some ankles a couple of times over rocks, but hey,
you survived.
I survived. And it was good to get out into the woods in the fresh air. And the fall colors were actually gorgeous and beautiful. And it was good company. And it reminded me to get out more. My flat moment of the week was that I just saw on the news that there was a state that shall not be named because we don't want to alienate any potential listeners already. Right. That there is a group banding together of moms that do not have decided to band together and not get their kids COVID tested. Knowing if their kids are potentially sick with COVID. They just keep them home, but they will not get them tested because they don't want their schools closed.
And they won't disclose to the schools that their kid is sick.
Exactly.
It's just disgusting. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Live and let live, but now you're putting other people's children.
Well, that's my problem with it.
Yeah.
And I have no problem if you want to do that on your own by one person and just keep it quiet to yourself, and that's how you want to live. Mm-hmm. But as a group of people banding together, you're not allowing contact tracing, you're not allowing other parents to make this decision, and or other kids. So you're putting an entire group and population into this mix. So those are mine. Liz, what are yours?
Sure. So my pump moment of the week was had a really nice conversation with my boss at work, who I love. She's amazing. Lynn's like almost 2 years ago, I started a new role at work, and it like really pushed me out of my comfort zone and like forced me to really think about things differently, learn new technology. Just really, quite honestly, for months I felt like a total fraud, and I'm like, they're going to catch me. I'm going to lose my job. But anyway, so she was telling me she had a one-on-one with her boss and was telling him like how far I'd come in the past year and how she'd seen my confidence grow and I've become a real leader and I've navigated all these difficult projects and conversations with clients, and she's really proud of my development and all of that. So it was just really like a nice thing to hear, because even at 46 years old, I love a little positive feedback, you know? So that was great. My flat moment of the week was cleaning up smeared poop off my bathroom wall, because apparently I live with a bunch of fucking orangutans. So that was a pretty humbling moment for me as both a mother and a human being. So no matter what I accomplish in my career, I will never be too good to clean up my kids' feces.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would say so. And you know what? And that's what this podcast
Right.
is literally all about. The pumps and the flat moments.
Yes.
Because you can, no matter how high you get, you get reminded how low.
Very quickly. I will never be too big for my britches. That's for sure. All right. So should we jump into our first topic? Okay. Fabulous.
Why don't you
So
go first?
Okay, cool. So today's episode we're calling identity theft, and it's not the identity theft where like some weirdo in Saudi Arabia like hacks into your bank account and steals your money and buys like 300 iPhones, or like what happened to me and some douchebag in Miami gets my credit card number somehow and buys a bunch of protein powder and rims. So people, even some roided out asshole can figure out how to steal from you. So we're talking really more about your personal identity, and kind of somehow, some way along like our travels through life, it can get a little bit lost. So, you know, we spend our lives in our young adulthood kind of figuring out who we are and who we are as people and our values and our likes, our dislikes, our hobbies, blah, blah, blah. And then for Lindsay and I, you get married and you become, you know, someone's Mrs., right? You actually literally give up your last name and take someone else's identity. I remember when I was on my honeymoon, the first time someone called me Mrs. Daly, I like whipped around looking for my mother-in-law. I'm like, she fucking followed us. But that was it. I was Mrs. Daly from then on out. And then, you know, I had my first child and I became mom, literally. Just mom. That's how people refer to you. You go to the doctor, mom, you go to the parent teacher, mom, like I'm not Liz anymore. Like what happened to the person I was before that? Like is because I'm a Mrs. or a mom, am I not allowed to like things like 90s gangster rap or stilettos or going to crazy concerts when you could go to crazy concerts or whatever? Like Linz, I would honestly like agonize over what to wear to like pediatrician appointments or parent teacher conferences. Be like, do knee-high boots say she probably lets her kids watch TV too much? Or does skinny jeans say, oh, she probably doesn't give her kids enough vegetables? Like, do I look like a bad mom? You know, it's like, am I supposed to change my persona? And granted, those statements sound crazy superficial, particularly in the world.
Not at all.
But like, that's my insecurity that I walk around with. Like, am I doing something that is going to read, in my mind, negative to someone else, right?
Right.
So the reason why I wanted to bring this topic up today was kind of like based on a quote from this TV show that I love. It's on FX. It's called Better Things, and it stars Pamela Adlon, who's an awesome actress. So if you have a chance to check it out, I definitely would. So in this episode, she's producing a documentary that features middle-aged women kind of discussing their feelings about aging, etc. And the quote was, "To be a woman in this world is to be built up and then let down. They cut us or sell us or marry us off. You're primed and you're prepped and abused and adored and harassed and worshipped. And then it all stops, all of it. We even age out of the bad things, like being fetishized or diminished or talked down to. It's even worse. You're invisible and you're literally left hunched over and alone with Santa's belly and a beard to boot, walking around shrinking, thinking, what just happened?" So it just struck a chord with me, particularly the beard part, because apparently after 40, you turn into a billy goat. So I don't know. That was sort of what kind of made me think that this would be a good first episode for us, because I think it really brings home like what, you know, we're all kind of dealing with at this point in our lives. And so all I know is that like, I can't drive around our little town with like my car windows down because I will inevitably offend everybody listening to Straight Outta Compton coming out of my car speakers. So, but you know, I have to say I'm lucky enough to be married to a guy that like lets me be me, idiosyncrasies, insecurities and all. Even if he does drive me crazy, because every year he does our taxes, he has to ask me what the birth dates of our children are. So there's that. But that's a podcast episode for another time. Yes. So I don't know, Linz, what's your take?
I completely agree with you. And when you had this idea for one of the topics and we moved it up to the top because it kind of sums up why we wanted to do this podcast in general, I think it was important because it sums up probably a lot of people that can listen to this, and not just from the female perspective, I'm sure, because men will feel this too, of like they just become the husband or dad, or if it's two men, like somebody's husband. But for me, it started before I got married because when my husband and I were, met, we met in a town that I had gone to and grown up in and out of since I was like 13. And I went back for a hiatus, and my husband had moved there 3 years prior and started a pub. And it was like his town. And so when I started dating him, they're like, oh, you're so-and-so's girlfriend.
It was like, that was your thing. And now it was his thing. Oh
and I was kind of like mad at first because I was like, wait a second, this is my town. Like this small town was like my piece of heaven since I was 13, and it's his town now. Like, and then it was like, whatever, I'm in love, I don't care. But every so often I still was like, oh, I'm not just his girlfriend. I am me. I am somebody. I had a life beforehand. I was taking a hiatus from Industrial Light and Magic. And so I was like, I did something before this. I was something before this.
This is like a pretty pivotal time in your life personally, because you were leaving behind something and trying to figure out what was next. And you don't want to be defined by him, for sure.
Exactly. And I wasn't sure if I was going to move back to San Francisco or LA. And so it was a pivotal time in my career, life. Exactly. So we got married. I did change career paths for a bit. And so not only was it life defining and changing, it was, then I became Mrs. My mother-in-law's name. And like you said, every time I got called that, I was like, where is she? And it is one of those things because you're like, and I, a lot of, and I'm sure this happened to you, a lot of my old friends that always knew me as my maiden name were like, I cannot call you that. Because they've always known you. And that actually made me feel kind of better because I was like, okay, good. Like you're individualizing me still as who I was or who I am. But going forward, like you said, once you have kids, then your mom, then your so-and-so's mom. And then when they get into sports or whatever group that the kid seems to gravitate towards, your so-and-so's mom again from this. And luckily, when we fell into our group of friends, they all know us as individuals. And that is we know we are lucky because of that, but not everyone is. And so whether you find yourself on the side where the husband or wife is the one that everyone recognizes, just put your heel on the other foot and recognize that the other person is an individual and you need to like recognize what they give and bring to the table because they might be feeling undervalued at that point.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, you had it doubly hard because when you guys moved here, you moved to Brian's hometown.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, we're moving from this place where that used to just be sort of your place. And now you're like all in Mrs. Sutton moving back to the hometown where he has established roots and people, and you're, 3,000 miles away from where you grew up. Right. So that must have been.
And that, exactly. And that was by choice for both of us. But that piece of it, he was very good about like keeping compartmentalized and like away, and because my husband's so great about that kind of stuff. But every once in a while when we run into some people that aren't so great about it,
right,
totally like lock me out of that situation, and is like, and those are the people that he doesn't care for anyways.
Yeah.
So you can tell. Plus, my husband has the worst memory in the world. So it's actually, it benefits both of us. Right. But it's not as bad as I thought it would be. And we always made a pact that if it was too much for me, that we would move back to the West Coast where we met.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah. And I think, we've all been around couples where you can tell there's one sort of like domineering personality, and it's very uncomfortable because you can tell that the person who's maybe the beta, like the non-domineering personality, is uncomfortable in their own skin, like doesn't, and I have plenty of insecurities myself, but it is very uncomfortable, I think, to be around people like that, where you can tell there's not sort of that like partnership or mutual respect or whatever. So
and you can see it, and it is sad, and we've seen it, and other people can see it.
Yes.
And so that's the part where you feel for those people, and we want to make sure that people can individualize themselves and not disappear.
Yeah, and not define yourself by like being someone's wife or someone's mother or someone's husband, whatever.
Completely agree. So should we move on to our other segment? Liz,
what's in the box? Want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. So, do you want to introduce what this segment is about?
So Liz came up with this brilliant idea. Probably because we are closet shoppers, much to the chagrin of our husbands. But also, there's been a huge uptick since COVID where people can't get out, and there has been a uptick in general of people buying random things on Amazon, Etsy, what have you.
Make yourself feel better.
Yeah, it's COVID.
Right.
You have to. And there's also, because businesses need the help, there's constantly a bombardment on the news of like, well, this place has 30% off and this place has 40% off. And who doesn't love a good sale?
Right.
So we consistently are loving a good sale, and so are our husbands, frankly.
Loving free 2-day shipping.
Yes.
Right? My husband has bought more stuff on Under Armour since COVID began. Like he don't even know, because now he's full on athleisure since he doesn't have to go into the office anymore. So I'm like, more sweatshirts? He's like, oh, they're so comfy.
See, and that's the whole thing, is that everybody wants to feel comfortable. Yes. And so like athleisure in general has had a spike, a huge spike. And so like all these favorite places that I had for shopping for work clothes, they all like turned a corner to like, here's your favorite joggers and your favorite sweatshirts. And I'm like, where are the dresses? And I was like, well, I guess no one's really going into the office.
Well, except for me, who's the asshole that bought the Spanx faux leather leggings during the pandemic. Fuck am I gonna wear those? But anyway, they're awesome and they're so comfortable. I love them.
Yeah, and you know what? You're gonna wear them, because hey. So that is what this segment is all about. And you can expect some normal things, but also some really weird things because that's what we do.
So yeah, what's in the box? So for me, I have this little doodad that I guess might look like a mini sex toy. I'm not well versed on sex toys, so it may or may not. I don't know. However, it is a facial hair remover, going back to the prior comment of turning into a billy goat. And it was recommended by this fashion blogger I follow. So
I have one too.
Of course, we're over 40. So it comes in the mail, and that night I'm in the bathroom getting ready for bed and washing my face, brushing my teeth. And all of a sudden Danny hears this. Whoops. He's in bed reading and he's like, "Hey hun, what's going on in there?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just removing my chin hair." He's like, "Oh, okay." I mean, he went from thinking there was this like super sexy thing going on to being like, I married a fucking barnyard animal. And let me tell you, Linz, that was a real boner softener. So that was it. Lights out. Good night. So that was mine.
That is amazing. On that note, I got also the eyebrow one.
Oh.
And I wasn't going to share this on the very first podcast, but my eyebrows are a little bit darker than usual because I had to pencil them in today.
Oh no.
Because the eyebrow one I went a little crazy with, and a whole chunk of eyebrow came off.
Oh my God. That's hysterical.
Because the eyebrow one it's not as precise as the news says. And it is not good. And it literally cut into this eyebrow. And so then I had to equal it out. And I look like Daniel Levy, my favorite guy, and Eugene, his dad, because I was like, oh my God. And then my regular like eyebrow pencil wouldn't color it in. And so because it's like bare skin.
Right.
So the only thing that would work is my eyeliner pencil. So now I'm like, oh my God. So
this is the benefits of COVID, right? Like we don't have to go anywhere. So you'll have plenty of time to have your eyebrows grow back in.
But that was fantastic. And I could just see Dan going, ooh, Liz, hi.
Yeah. Oh, let me put on my flannel pajamas and just lights out.
So that is similarly happened with Brian. Oh, wow.
Well, should we tell people where to follow us and like and subscribe and all that jazz? Hopefully if they like what they heard.
Thank you guys for listening. You can watch or listen to us on YouTube's. The YouTubes. This is morning podcast. We haven't been drinking.
Mid-coffee.
We are just mid-coffee. It just hasn't gotten all the way through. And you can listen on YouTube, Apple, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you are making dinner for your loving family on your third job, your 13th hour of work, and still looking fabulous with that glass of wine in your hand, please watch, listen, rate, subscribe. It helps people find us, and we really, really appreciate you guys listening to us. And look for us on all the social medias at Multitasking in Heels. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.